Good evening, Candace.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Doing good. Just hanging out here for a minute, waiting for people. I'm sorry,
Okay,
my phone.
that's okay. Hmm.
All right, here I am.
I haven't had a chance to eat dinner, but I really wanted to join this tonight. So I'm doing a little bit of nibbling.
All right, please feel free to eat, take care of yourself. I probably will have, I'm also momming. And so I have kids coming in and out and, it's kind of challenging to try and do this and everybody else is acting like I'm not doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Are you our organizer or are you
I'm leading this evening.
are you oh you are okay.
I am. I'm leading this evening. So I'm not quite sure how many people are registered. Have you participated in many of them? Many of the sessions?
I have not. I missed last month for different reasons, but I didn't know I had to register. I just saw the link on Joshua's Facebook page.
Okay.
So is there registration?
I believe so. I think you do
Okay.
have to sign up to get the Zoom link.
Okay.
And I attended my first one with Sabine last week.
Yeah, I missed those.
Yeah.
That was too bad.
Good evening, Tiara.
Hi, how are you?
I am well.
Meditation.
Yes. Welcome. I believe you were here last week, right?
I was with the meditation with Sebony, yes.
Yeah. I remember your voice.
Thank you. Love your hair, by the way.
Thank you. You know, when Bantu knots do what it do, right? Like,
yeah,
super cute.
Thank you. Oh, that just made my day. I feel like natural hair, when as a Black woman, there's nothing more complimentary than someone saying, "Oh, your hair smells so nice or so soft," like it is your natural hair. Things that we don't hear too often,
Yeah.
So my curls out and I'm passing by and people are like, "Oh, what's that smell? Like, that's your hair?" Like, yeah,
it's so beautiful. It's funny you mentioned that. I just got off the phone with my sister a few minutes ago, and we were talking about hair. But my nephew, just a long story short, my nephew told her to put her wig back on, but it's because she doesn't really wear her natural hair out. And I told her, I said, like, she needs to wear her natural hair out. So like subconsciously, like he's not going to be comfortable with natural hair because he's just not something that he's used to. So I don't know. I was just telling her, like, we have high maintenance hair, so we really have to take care of it. But when we do, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like that's a great way to think about our natural hair requires a lot of attention. It is, many of us have different textures over our head.
Yeah.
Then we have different textures with our siblings. And so there's not even like a communal conversation you can have about what works for you, what works for me, because it's so different. And it's like, we don't want to do that level of work. So we'll just, all right, what do I do to make my hair as easy to deal with as possible? And in that we kind of, damage it. We create these beliefs that we look better with damaged hair. Like, it's interesting how we reconcile these things. And it's been, it's funny, liberating, because that's kind of the topic of all this month. It's been liberating to take ownership of, I have to put in a lot of work to learn myself. learn my hair, learn what my hair needs during the day, during the season. And it was never presented to me as a way to build a relationship with me. Get to know your hair, get to know what your hair needs, get to know what your hair doesn't like, get to know what your hair is telling you about your health. Always like, well, what can you do to shut it up? So you can, live unbothered and beautiful, not realizing that the beauty is in the knowing.
Yes,
So
definitely.
good evening, je t'aime, which means I love you. En français. Good evening.
Hi.
Hi. Wonderful. So let's begin. My name is Mila Marshall, also known as Kels the Yogi on Instagram. I am a certified yoga and meditation instructor based out of Chicago. I've been practicing going on 10 years and teaching for about 6. And so when I was invited to participate, it was be a part of a community and share the lessons and the learnings that I've accumulated on the way, and connected to BIPOC community and the focus on liberation. And I was like, I'm in. I'll take every Wednesday in May. And so here I am. You'll be seeing me every Wednesday from May. And so I'm excited to be here. I realize that virtual meditation can be challenging for lots of different reasons, but it also can be very empowering. And teaching it online for the past year has taught me a lot about myself, a lot about holding space, a lot about how to prepare, wherever it is that I'm at, even if I'm receiving the meditation. And so as much as I miss walking into the studio and, smelling the essential oils and hearing, the trickle of the water fountains and the softness of the floor and the candles, and it's a whole vibe. You walk in and it's just like, ugh. And I miss that. But the fun part about meditation is that regardless of where you are, that same energy can be very present, that sweetness, that gentleness, that calmness. And so you might find yourself in a place where that doesn't feel true. And so if your space has things in it that you wish to remove or move out of the way for this evening, please feel free. You also don't have to stay on video if you don't want to. Feel free to pop on, pop off. If you do need to step away or take a call, like, I realize that we're working people and some of us have families. So I don't want you to feel like, you don't have to force it. Allow yourself to experience this evening in whatever way that you can. And if you cannot stay until the end, ashe, it's okay. And hopefully we'll have a really good time together. And so I think I want to start off by allowing everyone to share a little bit about themselves. So your name, if you like, you can also share your pronouns. It's not necessary, but you can. Where you're kind of logging in from, and let's see, what brought you to this evening's session? So those are the questions: name, where you're logging in from, and what brought you here this evening. And so would anyone like to volunteer to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
Hello, good evening. My name's Jitem. You pronounced it perfectly earlier. Thank you. I live in Baltimore, Maryland. I have been meditating off and on my entire life, but this past year, it's like I graduated. I'm doing a lot better. I'm more consistent, and it's more meaningful. And what brings me here, I attended the first session last week with
Sabine.
yes, Selassie, and it was just really beautiful and powerful. And I've been listening to her videos ever since, pretty much every day. And yeah, and the energy was great with the participants in the room. And it just made me realize that I miss this so much. I would get this from yoga, but I haven't been going to yoga classes. So yeah, that's what brings me here. That's where I'm from. And thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you for logging in. It's a little later on that side, about 8 o'clock. So I appreciate
Yeah,
you holding on to your energy for this evening. So thanks.
no problem.
Who's next?
I'll go. So yeah, my name is Tiara, and I'm originally from Chicago, so that's pretty cool. I found out about Southside Liberation through Joshua, and last week was my first time attending like a meditation with 70, and it was a very, very nice meditation session. I usually meditate on my own, so doing group sessions is kind of new for me, but I like everything that the organization stands for, and I saw that there was going to be another meditation session today, so I decided, why not?
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Mhm.
Last but not least.
Hi, I'm Candace. I am logging in from the Bronx in New York City. I actually lived I'm from the Bronx. This is where I grew up. I'm at my grandmother's house right now. But I lived in Chicago for 18 years, and I meditated with Joshua in Chicago for 2.5 or 3 years when he moved there. And so I'm super excited about Southside Liberation. But I actually live in Memphis. So I'm kind of like all over the place right now. But luckily, I'm able to do everything virtual, working virtually, which is letting me be in New York City with my family. I've been meditating on and off for the last 20 years. I have a steady practice now. And I actually founded the Southside Insight group that meets on Mondays online now. And I've been wanting to support Southside Liberation. I somehow missed all of the sessions last month. So I'm really glad to be here tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you. So it's funny that you say Memphis. I just got a book on tape, well, CD, and it's about Black girls in Memphis. It is a wild and ratchet book, which I need for my car ride. But it's fun to hear stories from our people and the culture down south. I've never been to Memphis, so kind of hearing it and reading about it, like the words, I'm like, oh, we're so different everywhere we go. Chicago is not St. Louis. The language, the style, the clothing, we're so diverse. I think that's the fun part about realizing your Blackness, is that it shows itself kind of like the flowers in a field, right? Roses and jasmine and whatever. We're not the same. But how we move, like how we try and move collectively, doesn't necessarily lend itself to that understanding. Like there is not solidarity. Like there is a culture, generational, gender, geographical, north versus south, urban versus rural. And so learning, using my practice to understand myself, understand my identities, right? Like my work in this lifetime has been fascinating, and I don't know what I would do without my practice. I'm very, I was born into a family, we're Baptist missionaries. And so I was told the things that you have to do is stay Black and stay Democrat. That was it, and go to church and be Baptist missionary. Mindfulness and meditation was not a conversation. Therapy was not a conversation. You prayed on it, right? And I realized at a very early age that having a kind heart, being a good person, was something that made me feel good. Even though people will hurt, or take advantage of, I never minded it. There was something always sweet knowing that I'm going to sleep and I didn't cause harm. And so I thought that that was what a good Christian little Black girl did. But the stories of the Bible were confusing because It's like, be like Christ. What does that mean? Like, how do you do that? Because he was perfect. There's no way I can be perfect. And so this book became a bit of a prison for me, like a mental prison. Like, how am I supposed to be this good person? I'm missing some understandings. I understand what faith is, but I'm missing out on how to think about forgiveness and compassion and love. And this practice the meditation practice came on the heels of yoga. I started off in Bikram yoga, 27 poses, hot as ever. And I was like, oh, I can do this. I can do 27 poses. And I thought I was the bomb.com. And I went to go be a teacher. And then I realized, like, oh, there are lineages of yoga, right? Like, people have created styles of yoga. And then I felt shortchanged. Like, there are thousands of ways you can bend your body. And Bikram has it in just 27. And I that moment I realized, wow, it's bigger than this, is the moment I allowed myself to fully receive the practice. And so the definition of yoga itself is unity, right? The bringing together of the body, the mind, and the soul. And so I was not prepared for yoga asana. The physical movement of the body prepares the body to sit. That's it. That's all, right? Is to relieve the tension so that the body can safely and soundly be still. And for me, that was like, okay, I've never meditated before. I don't know what it'll do, but it's worth a try. And it was probably the scariest thing ever to sit and see myself for the first time. And it has allowed me to live life on purpose, to understand the difference between me and my thoughts, and to give me access to living an ethical life. And also kind of soothe some of the tension being born a Black woman, because I definitely should have a chip on my shoulder, growing up in Chicago with some of the things that I've been through. But I don't want my identity, my packaging, my meat suit to harden my heart from all of the rest of the joys of the world. Like, I don't want to forget to live and be happy and allow myself to make memories because of this packaging and how other people relate to it. Like, the politics of the body no longer impress me. The goal is to live consciously and purposely, and never forget that I'm the soul inside, the indweller, right? I'm not the things, I'm blessed to have a body, but this is not who I am, right? And so Je t'aime says, well put, being a Black woman is a fascinating journey. My identity journey has been the most fulfilling part of my life. I completely agree. Sometimes I don't feel like I have a gender or an age or an ethnicity. Sometimes I feel so separate from the body that I just realize, like, I'm animating it, right? The soul has no gender, has no age, has no, like, consciousness doesn't have an identity. And so the moment that I realized that, I'm like, well, I'm free to animate this physical body to have the experience that I want to have. I'm not going to let the body dictate what it is that I do with my life. And these lessons are still growing. So I'm excited to talk to you all a little bit about, we're going to start off this month understanding ourselves and seeing ourselves, and what does that mean to know the difference between big I and little I, ego and self. And so we're going to do a bit of centering practice. I will share with you a bit of my lineage and where I come from. There also might be some storytelling, and then we'll move into a practice this evening. And so with that, any questions, reflections before we begin? All right, so the first thing is that if the body is feeling any tension, go ahead and give it some attention. So maybe some seated cat-cow, or you can roll your shoulders, give yourself some neck circles, whatever kind of physical stretch the body needs. If the body needs some support, blankets, pillows, whatever, go ahead and grab your things. There's no rush. Okay. Find a comfortable position for your body and keep your eyes open. You're going to look around your space for 5 things you normally overlook. So using your eyes, look around your space, up, down, and around, and look for 5 things you normally would overlook. Once you've found those 5 things, go ahead and begin to close your eyes. If the eyes feel really jumpy, you can take a light touch. And to realize that you're holding tension in your face, your jaws, even clenching your glutes or your low belly. Allow yourself to soften a bit. And I'm going to invite for you to bring your attention to your sense of touch and feel. So do your best to identify 4 things you feel on or in your physical body. That could be the weight of your earrings on your earlobes. It could be the foundation underneath your seat. The weight of your watch on your wrist. The warmth of your palms if they're turned down on your thighs even. Slowly let your sense of touch and feel fade away. And bring your attention to your sense of sound. As you notice this sense, allow all the sounds to be present without any extra effort. As you observe those sounds, not looking to follow anyone in particular, but simply sitting in the listening space, the receiving of the sound without the judgment of it. Identify 3 sounds you can hear without any extra effort, not including the sound of my voice. Maybe you can tell the direction the sound is moving. Maybe you can tell how close the sound is. Slowly begin to let your sense of sound fade away. Letting everything be muted, but stay connected to the sound of my voice. Begin to bring your attention to your sense of smell. Allow yourself to observe 2 scents, not looking to judge them as favorable or unfavorable. But being aware of them. Slowly let your sense of smell fade away as well. Begin to bring your attention to your sense of taste. Lick your lips and swallow. And what's the flavor of this evening's breath? Let your sense of taste fade away as well. And bring your attention to your breath. Allowing yourself to be fully present. As you've traveled inwards. Letting all of the programs and the networks of the body, letting those rest for a moment. Not looking to process any information or categorize any information. Simply enjoy being with the breath in the body. Allow your natural breath to be smooth and even. And take a nod in your head and your hands to your heart. Imagine a little trap door in between your eyebrows, right there at the third eye. Let any distracting thoughts, concerns, or considerations trickle out of that space. Clearing your mind for just you and your practice this evening. And letting that wish to grow, that reason for showing up, let that come from your heart. Remove that intention from the middle of your heart center into the palms of your hands, through all of your arms, trickling through the rest of your body, crown of head to sole of feet. Just filling your space with that intention. And choosing to listen with your inner ears. Inviting yourself to remain as present as you possibly can. And slowly taking your hands away from your heart. And fluttering your eyes open and coming back. Moving into a practice of meditation sometimes can feel like, oh, I gotta just sit. And sometimes a centering practice seems too luxurious. And I found that when we treat our practice with energy that is sacred, or we approach our practice with reverence, it changes the flavor of it just a little bit. And so this evening, I thought, where would I like to begin? And I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll kind of focus on love. And then I thought, well, maybe, maybe I'll focus on ego. And then something kind of struck me in that, well, why don't I share what's been the most impactful for me, like my beginning, and start from there. So that's where I will begin. And so I'm not familiar if you all have ever heard of the Yoga Sutras. And the Yoga Sutras were written by Patanjali. We don't know if it was a single person or a group of people, but it's a yogi's guide to ethical living. And when I started my practice, I thought, great, I've been trying to figure out a way how to activate my faith. Like, I'm a very logical person, I'm a scientist, and I needed something with some teeth on it that I could understand. I love words. And when I was introduced to the Yoga Sutras, there was a section about the 5 states of consciousness. And in the moment they were introduced, I couldn't stop crying. Because for the first time, I had something to help me understand why it is that I am finding it hard to stop engaging thoughts that are not real and true. I also had something that helps me understand, or help me understand, what does real and true even mean? And so the brain, the brain is not the mind. The brain is a muscle, right? And the brain collects information. It organizes information. It stores information. It recalls information. But it is not wise. It has no discernment. And depending on where your mind is, where your consciousness is, can change how you behave, can influence your emotions, and life can drag you around. And I have been dragged around pretty severely. And so when this was presented to me, it made total sense. And so those 5 states of consciousness are dreamless sleep, memory, fantasy or imagination, incorrect understanding, and correct understanding. And so to make this more conversational, can someone share with me your definition of a memory? If you were to define memory or explain it to a child, what would you say? If you had to define memory,
If I was explaining memory to a child or just anyone about what it was, I would probably say that memory is our past experiences that we have. And even kind of like future too, because we think about things from the past, but then we also think about things from the future, which is kind of like a memory, but it's like a future memory. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's kind of like seeing into the future. And so like a memory is something that you can recall through any of the 6 senses, not just the 5, but the 6th sense too. So something that you recall that happened from the past through, touch, sight, hear, smell, sing. And it's something that kind of like has an impact on you, or something that affects you to where that is now as a stored memory in your brain, because it's something that you have perceived.
so it happened and
Yes.
you can recall it, right? And anything can invite that memory to be present now. It could be a sound, it could be a person that can charge up that memory to come back. Thank you. Anyone want to add to, or?
I was going to say something similar, just to simplify it, because you're explaining it to a child. But when I think of memories, I always think about smells, because smells have such a supposedly strong connection with memory. I know I've experienced it personally, but sometimes I can smell something and I know what part of my life it's from, but I can't remember exactly the memory. And I think everybody can relate to that in a way. But yeah, definitely your senses. I think that's a big part of it.
Okay. So, imagination. How would you describe imagination or fantasy?
I would describe imagination as kind of a bridge between the things that you've seen and the things that you haven't seen. I do think we can purely come up with things that are creative and unique, but I think a lot of it is influenced by our surroundings or things we've gone through, experiences we've had.
Thank you. Tiara? It's okay if there's nothing right now.
No, I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of like doing something right now, so if I have my camera off. As far as the imagination goes, the imagination is vast, and if we're still like explaining this to children, I mean, the only thing I can think of is it's something that comes to you. Like I like when I'm imagining things, like I'm usually like in a deep meditative state, and it's an intention that I set. But when I'm thinking of something, you know, things usually come to me, and it might be like an idea or a thought, and it's just kind of, you know, using that to kind of play on, you know, your creativity is when you're imagining, you're basically like making things up in your mind, or like these ideas and things are coming to you where you're able to like create something that's not necessarily like there. It's not like physical, but it's like mental, like, you know, on a mental note. So it would be like, you know, just it's all like imaginary things that we think of or things that come to us.
Okay. And so the interesting part about memory and fantasy is that neither of them are presently happening, right? A fantasy has no basis in fact at all. And so a good way to relate to an imagination is, I use romantic partners often. Your romantic partner doesn't pick up the phone. And so that person not picking up the phone immediately has you thinking that they're doing something sinister. And not only are they doing something sinister, you've created what it is that you think that they are doing, right? They're sitting there not picking up the phone because they're talking on the phone with someone that you don't like. And they're having a conversation that you don't approve of. Like you literally just created this entire scenario with no fact whatsoever. They just haven't picked up their phone. Let's say the next day you're talking to your friend and they say, oh, my boyfriend didn't pick up my phone. You know what? Yesterday, neither did mine. Your memory of yesterday was a fantasy anyway. There's this reality that our minds can create untruths and we go with it, right? And we feel as though those thoughts, because we had them, they're real and true. And so let's go to incorrect understanding. I'll take this one. There's an episode of Jerry Seinfeld where he was dating a model and he was riding in a car and she was in a cab. And he was scratching his nose. This is how it was. Can you see that? What does it look like I'm doing?
Picking your nose,
Now, if I do it from here, what am I doing?
scratching your nose.
All right, so he's in the car. She's on the opposite side. He's doing this. She sees this. And he turns and looks, and she's disgusted. She's appalled. She refuses to look at him. And he's like, no, I wasn't picking my nose. He's like trying to plead with her, right? And she refused to even listen. Incorrect understanding is perception, right? That really happened to her. She really saw what she saw, but she didn't see what she thought she was seeing, right? And she also was unavailable to reflect on, I wasn't on the other side. I wasn't in front of him. It's possible that I'm incorrect. I don't have enough information. And even when the person that did the act tried to correct her, she only believed her eyes, right? And so we can't trust the body, right? The body cannot, our sense of smell, sight, touch, taste can betray us if we don't know how to discern what is accurate, inaccurate, what is correct, what is incorrect. Which brings me to correct understanding. Now, we talk about truth often and what's real, what's fake. And what I've learned is my best way of living is with full correct understanding, right? Because my truth and your truth can be true and still false. But we argue, I'm right, you're wrong, but even that's relative. So when I learned about the 5 states of consciousness, it gave me something to reflect on. Where are my thoughts coming from? I had to look back and say, is this memory even real? Or did I make up the thing and now the made up thing is the memory? Did I make up that issue between my sister and I? Right? Did I imagine beef and then it was real? Or was it how she said it was nothing? So I went back and I had to evaluate, like, oh my God. I felt like that Ghetto Boys song, it's mucked up when your mind is playing tricks on you. And I realized, I'm like, why does it feel like my mind is against me? But it's that I hadn't learned how to be with my thoughts. I hadn't learned how to engage with them, let them pass, hold myself accountable for letting go of thoughts that were not true. And so that became my passion. I don't want to live like in the Matrix, right? Where your reality is created for you and you're really not living. And if everybody has a different version in their head, then none of us are really living. We're not even alive. We're not in the same place. They're seeing this moment different. I'm seeing this moment different. We're not here. We're here, but we're not here. And the more I practiced with understanding my thoughts, the scarier it got, because I realized that a thought that I held on to that's untrue, I can take that, create something tangible in the real world and move it out and make it become so. And as a scientist, I decided, like, well, why is this human nature? We have 5,000 to 7,000 unprovoked thoughts a day, right? That's a lot of thoughts that just come out of nowhere, right? We as individuals are a reflection of the thoughts that we hold on to and the thoughts we let go of. I always thought I wanted to be a fireman, and here I am, right? So no competing thought. This is the one I'm holding on to, everything else passed. And even with how the mind works, it stores the most hurtful, painful, toughest things the easiest and the longest. This has been scientifically proven, right? And so learning that my brain is designed to hold on to everything that hurts to protect me because I am a living being had me become even more diligent in helping my mind hold on to the hurt that was real and not the hurt that is fantasy, right? Because this brain and this system is designed to protect itself, right? And if I wish to live consciously, if I wish to live with purpose, if I wish to live with correct understanding, I have to have a way to hold myself accountable. I have to have a way to train myself to let go of the thought that is a fantasy, to let go of the thought that is untrue, as well as build the muscle to ask myself, is this true? And to build the practice of discernment to feel when it is not. And that's what's been so empowering for me, is learning how to watch my thoughts, learning how to sit with the discomfort of my thoughts. And when something is true with full correct understanding, sometimes I have the energy to act on it, other times I don't, right? None of this is easy. We say that the path of meditation is the path of the warrior, because the only person that you fight against is who? You, right? Your mind, your thoughts. And learning how to sit still and watch without engaging is probably the toughest thing ever, because you want to figure it out, but you can't do it up here, right? Yoga is the uniting of consciousness in the heart. And so as we seek to find solutions, we can't do it from our brain. We must do it from our mind, which sits here. And this practice brings you from outside of yourself to acknowledging the divinity within you, that you are the indweller, right? We just went through all of the senses. You could touch, taste, feel, and see. You definitely know you are not a sense, right? You are not a sense. You can engage it. You can turn it on, turn it off. You can turn it up or turn it down, right? We even went to connect with the breath, and you could feel and watch the breath. So you're not the breath. So you're not the senses, you're not the breath. You're not the physical body either, right? So if you're not the senses, and you're not the breath, and you're not the body, and you can watch your thoughts, and you can say to yourself, that was a crazy thought, then you're not the thoughts. And if you have a thought that brings up an emotion, and you can witness, thinking about that makes me sad, then you're not the emotion either. Then who are you? Right? If you're none of the packaging and you're none of the processing, who are you? What are you? Right? And this is the journey of going inward. Some people say, oh, we're light. I just say soul, consciousness. We are awareness. Every sentient being has some level of awareness. And to have this level of awareness in a human body is such a gift, right? Such a gift to animate and to have what other beings do not. I'm going to hold my answer before we go into our practice, but I'll share it with you, but I want to know what you all think. What's the biggest difference between us as humans and all other sentient beings? What do we have that they do not have? It's one thing.
I actually think more and more that they have more in common with us than than not. But I've heard and read that the biggest thing that separates humans and animals, for example, is the ability to come up with narratives, to come up with stories. I think it's just like just a different way of thinking where we're able to create currency out of like a coin or something physical. It's just really a thought. It's not something that really actually exists, but that's just what I'm thinking off the top of my head.
Okay, totally fine.
For me, I mean, growing up, raised Christian, I was always taught that humans had a soul and animals did not. And I believe that for some time, but I do believe that, you know, anything that has breath has some sort of soul or consciousness to it. But I think the only thing I can think of is kind of like what she was saying. I'm sorry, Jitame. I'm sorry if I'm
Good job.
yeah, it's probably that we have the ability to do more and to manifest, and like animals, they're kind of like, they have like a primal nature just to survive and kind of procreate. And like humans, we can do the same, but we also have, you know, ideas that come to us. We have like hands and fingers where we can actually create and develop stuff on another level that, you know, animals cannot, because they just don't have the ability to build things. So probably just like in that aspect, like we are, you know, the gatekeepers of the world, because we have the ability to do so much more than to eat, you know, sleep in sugar honey iced tea, you know. So I think that would probably be like the biggest thing that kind of separates us from any other species here on Earth.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So I'm an urban ecologist. I study Earth systems, and to see the interconnectedness of life it's overwhelming. And actually, there are two things that I would say make us different. The first is very kind of tactile. We are the only beings that create waste that Earth cannot decompose naturally. Everything else on Earth creates waste that something else uses. We can create something that never existed on Earth, and Earth systems is like, we'll figure it out, but this hurts, right? We create waste that causes problems that is not a resource for another being. The other thing is free will. I think both of you kind of alluded to this a little bit. The programming of nature is embedded in their DNA, right? A beaver that chews on a piece of wood is going to select the piece of wood in the area based on its innate programming, right? It's going to find what it needs to find to chop down this tree, to build a dam, cause a flood over here and a drought over there. It doesn't care if there's an endangered species of frogs on the drought side. The beaver is just going to do what it needs to do. It has no ability to consider, I'm hurting something, you know? Like you said, it's survival. It is following its program. And a part of this is natural selection. So this is a real tight system. Losses and gains, births and deaths, all of these things create stability and balance. Us, we can override, right? We can stop hurt from happening, or we can induce it. We can take away resources and do nothing with them and cause, you know, trauma and drama. Looking at food security in the world, right? We have free will to do whatever it is that we wish. We can create, we can destroy, like you said, Tiara, right? Now, other organisms do that, but they don't think about gain. They didn't create currency, like you said. They didn't create a hierarchy of, I'm going to do this so that I become the king of the jungle. A frog cannot become a lion, right? But in our society, a poor homeless person can definitely find themselves in a different situation. And so as humans, we have these abilities to do certain things, but that doesn't mean that we should do them. And so a practice of meditation can help you understand, why am I moving like this? How should I be moving? What is my attachment to pursuing a path in this way with this person at this time? Is this what I really want? Or are my senses being tricked? Hence commercials, hence going into the grocery store. There's an entire field of science to study how to manipulate us into giving what we didn't freely wish to give. And so as you watch a commercial, the music is intentional, the people are intentional, the colors are intentional, to trick your senses into trusting to give your entire paycheck for something that isn't going to nourish you, right? And so that's why you have, if you've ever looked at a grocery store, it is designed in a certain way. The sale items are placed, the color red for sale is red on purpose because it's shown it's urgent. Let me go look. We are being pulled to be where other people want us to be, for them to get from us what they want from us, not what we wish to give. And so we become these like human conduits, right? We sell our time to make the money, to buy the things that other people told us. This is what's going to make you happy. This is what it means to be a Chicagoan. This is what it means to, have affluence and wealth. You travel, you buy Gucci, you buy Prada, you get the best this, you get the best that, you pay for that. And all the while selling your time in ways that's hurting yourself, not allowing you to live in alignment with your wishes to grow. Also, you can feed this ego of, oh, when I get this, I'm going to feel that. When I do this, I'm going to feel that. And none of those things are true. And so while the rest of sentient beings get to kind of follow their programming, we're kind of in a position where we have to remind ourselves to live consciously, to be aware of when the thoughts that have been activated by something outside of us or a memory have moved us into a place that isn't a part of our plan, right? It's just, we're just going along with the flow. And so as you practice, you might find yourself feeling like you're watching a movie. Have you ever been out, like after practicing, it's like you look around, you're like, this is weird. You see how people are moving and they're not necessarily awake. I don't like using the word woke, but you can tell when somebody's buried so deep, their conversation, how they think, what they think is important. And you just be sitting there like, wow, I don't feel like I know you. I'm experiencing you, but the divine you inside is buried so deep that all I can do is smile and nod, right? And so my hopes or my wishes for this evening's practice is to give you an opportunity to watch your thoughts and practice aparigraha, non-attachment. Staying in a place of witnessing right? It's easy to, I'll say the easiest thing about meditation with the breath is that you have a totem, you have an anchor, you can come back to the breath. But how can you watch the thoughts pass and allow yourself to not feel anxious, allow yourself to not reach forward and want to figure it out, allow yourself to let the feelings with that thought pass? Because we can't always, all right, I'm going to stop, I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to let this bad juju pass, right? Like that doesn't work in the real world. And we can't squirrel ourselves away hiding and hoarding in lotus pose. That's not living either. I did that. I practiced and practiced, and all I did was want to practice, and I was miserable because I wasn't living. I had replaced whatever vice with meditation, and my ego was practicing. This is meant to be lived. And so being the witness requires you to be aware when you have grabbed onto that thought to follow it, and choose to let it go and come back to watching. You will be taken out quite often, but the moment you realize, ooh, I'm engaging, I'm not watching, just breathe and let it go, all right? And so with that, find yourself into a comfortable seat. Begin to close your eyes. If you'd like to lie down, please feel free. You can take any position for the body that is comfortable for you this evening. And begin to find your inner seat once again. Feel free to close your eyes. Allow yourself to settle in. You can begin to move your awareness just around your body before we get to the thoughts. Paying attention to how the body feels this moment. Looking at the places that feel a little tight, inviting some release just with your thoughts. Bringing some attention to your energy, where you are starting from this evening. And begin to move your awareness to your mind's eye. Imagine yourself looking at a beautiful sky. Well, it might not be so beautiful though, because the sky represents your mind and your thoughts. And so as you travel into your mind, what's the weather like? If your mind was the sky and the weather, is it gloomy and cloudy and rainy? Is it overcast or warm, humid? As you're looking at this sky that represents your thoughts, allow those individual thoughts to be like clouds. And your invitation this evening is to be aware, to watch. Let your breath be natural. As you witness the thoughts moving, some may be rapid, some may feel like they're on a loop. As you watch the thoughts, you might also want to deepen your practice to ask, is that thought an imaginary thought? No facts, not based in any facts? Is it a memory? Watch the quality and the integrity of your thoughts. If you feel yourself connecting emotions to the thoughts, allow those two to pass. And observe how it feels to witness and receive those emotions. It's interesting how one can go from joyful to sad to excited back to mad within a few breaths. And so if the thoughts can inspire a shift in our emotions and a shift in our mental state, that doesn't seem like a very balanced life, being dragged around by thoughts that might not even be real, with feelings that are. So then what is the goal of meditation? And that is to still the thought waves of the mind. And if we wish to have relief from heavy thoughts and heavy feelings, that a practice of surrender, a practice of non-attachment can be really useful. Being scatterbrained and an emotional wreck doesn't make for a really happy, fulfilling life. But if you had a way to remain still while the thoughts moved, or the emotions found their way in, even if they were invited by an imaginary thought, that you won't allow that to influence your actions, that you'll choose to move mindfully with full awareness, not responding or reacting, but choosing. Choosing to acknowledge I am uncomfortable with the thought, but I will remain still in my heart and take care of myself. I'm confused by this conversation, but I'm going to use my practice to remain present because I'm at my little cousin's violin recital and I want to enjoy every single note. This practice anchors us so that the things that are unseen that we're experiencing inside don't dictate what we do, how we do, who we do it with. Meditation is my grandmother's prayer in 3 words. She would pray, peace be still. Not poverty be still, not racism be still, not anger be still, peace be still. So begin to flood your heart with a peaceful breath. Begin to turn your attention away from the thoughts and witnessing the thoughts and the emotions. And find yourself easily turning inward to the breath. Watch it as it first enters the body, maybe at the ridge of the nostrils or a little further back into the face. Watch how the body responds to the breath. Witness how turning away from the thoughts and the feelings into the breath changes anything for you. As you focus on your breath, bringing your attention to if your state has shifted at all. Recall your starting place. And where are you now? Slowly begin to let your natural breath return. And we'll exit as we entered our practice, taking a nod in your head and your hands to your heart. Letting some gratitude build. And thanking yourself for all of the lessons and understandings that are new, those that are dissolving, those that are being replaced with new updated awareness. Licking your lips and swallowing. Bringing your sense of smell and sound back. Taking your hands and rubbing them together. Giving your body any movement. And slowly opening your eyes. And so, Jatem, I see that you have to leave. Thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to see you next Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I
Thank
thought this
you. That
was the
was
end of
amazing.
the meditation. Or is
Oh.
there a discussion? I'm sorry.
Oh, no
You were just
worries.
saying thank you for joining me.
Oh, yeah. Well, Jatem had to, she put in she has to kind of leave, so I wanted to let her go. But yeah, if there are any questions about the meditation or the 5 states of consciousness, be glad to answer those. But we will be continuing this next Wednesday as well.
Okay. And it's the whole month of May, you said?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. All right, I'll be back next week.
Okay, well, have a wonderful evening, Tiara. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, you too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.